Now joining us via Skype is investigative journalist Wayne Madsen. Wayne, thank you for joining us today. Now, Washington is keen to arm Kiev troops while Merkel has expressed a preference for diplomatic measures. What should we expect from Merkel's visit to the US?
Well, I think Merkel is going to tell Obama to hold the line against the Republicans in Congress, who are, for the most part, calling for the U.S. to send weapons to Ukraine. And I think there's a very fine line between what they call defensive weapons and offensive weapons. A weapon is a weapon, and any defensive weapon can be obviously used offensively. And this is what Merkel is set out to do, to try to get Obama to hold his line, because the people calling for weapons to go to Ukraine are the same neocons. John McCain, Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Bob Corker, who I think is probably placed there by the CIA. He just came out of nowhere in Tennessee politics to become now the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. These people, these shameless neocons that got us involved in Iraq and in civil wars in Libya and in Syria, are now wanting us to arm the Ukrainians. They're shameless individuals, these neocons, and I would hope that Merkel would remind Obama of what these neocons did during the Bush-Cheney administration.
Now, we know that arming Kiev would be an extremely provocative move towards Russia. Why is it something that they are pushing for when they know that the outcome would be quite severe?
Well, McCain is a warmonger. That he always has been. He has no problem in ratcheting up tensions with any country around the world that he feels is some sort of threat to the United States, whether it be Russia, China, Iran. It doesn't matter with McCain. He's beholden to the war industry. He gets a lot of his campaign cash from the Lockheed Martins and the Boeings and these other defense contractors. So he doesn't care. He wants to increase his own savings, his own profit margins. But Merkel understands what these sanctions are doing to the German economy, too. The German economy is faltering now because the Germans are not selling the same number of cars to Russia, foodstuffs to Russia. And same goes for the French. So it was no surprise to see President Hollande and Chancellor Merkel rush off to Kiev first and then to Moscow to try to work out a diplomatic agreement, because their economies are suffering, whereas the United States has very little trade with Russia, and therefore these politicians can make these threats against Russia from Washington, D.C. without fearing any sort of economic ramifications from their actions.
Now, moving on to Wednesday, we know that a summit is due to take place, and President Putin has warned that leaders need to agree on certain points. How likely is that to happen?
Well, I think Putin is going to hold the line, because one of the things that Poroshenko, the Ukrainian president, has always refused to do is recognize any right of self-determination for the Russian speakers of eastern Ukraine. And he's going to say that has to be a condition. Now, they're saying the Ukrainians say no preconditions, but obviously there has to be conditions for some sort of ceasefire to be reached. There's talk about a demilitarized zone between Ukrainian forces and the secessionist forces in eastern Ukraine. We may see some movement there, but I think Putin will say absolutely no way to NATO or OSCE peacekeepers coming in there, because he'll view that as troops somehow aligned to the West, and he wants to see honest brokers patrol any sort of DMZ or any sort of buffer zone, if that's what's arrived at. And I think we're a long way from a DMZ, but I'm sure that's going to be on the drawing boards in Minsk.
Wayne Madsen, investigative journalist, thank you very much for joining us today.